After I got an injury, my parents said, "We can't afford to help you with bills." Then bought my brother a house. I afforded my own life without them, but now they want my help. But they can't afford my forgiveness now. Hey Reddit. So this is a story about how my parents let me struggle through a serious injury that cost me my job and nearly my entire savings, claiming they were broke, then turned around and dropped a down payment on a house for my little brother. And now they're crawling back asking for help because karma finally caught up with them. Buckle up because this one's a ride. I'm Jake, 32 male, and I've been on my own since I was 18. Not because I wanted some adventure or independence or anything dramatic like that. Just because my parents made it clear early on that I was the kid who needed to figure things out on my own, while my younger brother Nathan got the full family support package. Growing up, the favoritism was so obvious it would have been funny if it wasn't my life. Nathan could do no wrong. Forgot his homework? Mom would drive it to school? Failed a test? Dad would march in demanding the teacher explain why his son wasn't getting proper instruction. Got caught drinking at 16? Just boys being boys. Everyone experiments. Me? I got a C on one assignment in sophomore year and got grounded for a month. No phone, no hanging out, just homework and chores. When I pointed out the double standard, Dad hit me with the classic line that still makes my blood boil. Nathan needs more support because he's sensitive. You're tough enough to handle it. Translation? We don't feel like parenting you, so we're going to call it character building. I worked through high school because I knew college wasn't going to pay for itself. Dad managed a mid-sized warehouse making decent money. Mom worked part-time at an insurance office. They weren't rich, but they weren't struggling either. Could have helped me with school. Chose not to. You'll appreciate your education more if you earn it yourself, Mom told me when I asked about help with tuition. Meanwhile, Nathan's college fund sat there untouched, growing interest, waiting for him to decide what he wanted to major in. Spoiler alert, he never did figure that out. I went to community college for 2 years, then transferred to state school. Lived in the cheapest apartment I could find with 3 roommates. Worked full-time at a warehouse during summer and winter breaks, part-time during school. Graduated with a degree in logistics management and about 28 grand in student loans. Started working at a shipping company right out of college. Entry-level position moving boxes and learning inventory systems. Wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it. Worked my way up over 6 years to a supervisor position, making about $52,000 a year. Enough to cover my loans, rent a decent 1-bedroom apartment, and actually save a little each month. Nathan, meanwhile, dropped out of college after a year and a half. Just stopped going to classes. When my parents found out, they weren't even mad. Just disappointed in a soft way that came with 0 consequences. He moved back home rent-free and spent the next 2 years bouncing between part-time gigs at coffee shops and retail stores. Every family dinner became this weird therapy session where my parents would talk about Nathan finding his path and discovering his passion, like he was on some spiritual journey instead of just being lazy and directionless. When I'd mention my promotions or pay raises, I'd get a distracted, "That's nice, honey," before the conversation pivoted back to Nathan's latest existential crisis about whether he should apply to art school or try to become a real estate agent, or maybe learn to code. The injury happened last October. We were doing inventory in one of the main warehouses, and I was up on a scissor lift checking stock on the high shelves. Safety protocol says you're supposed to have a spotter, and the lift should be on a level surface. But we were behind schedule, and my manager was pushing everyone to move faster. I was reaching for a clipboard that had fallen behind some boxes when the whole lift shifted. The ground wasn't as level as I thought, and the weight distribution was off. Thing tipped sideways, and I went down about 12 feet, landed hard on my left side. The impact broke my collarbone, fractured 3 ribs, and did something nasty to my shoulder that required surgery. The pain was unreal. Couldn't breathe without feeling like someone was stabbing me. Couldn't move my arm. Just laid there on the concrete warehouse floor trying not to pass out while my coworkers called for help. Hospital, surgery, physical therapy, the whole thing. Doctor said I'd be out of work for at least 4 months. Maybe 6 depending on how well I healed. Workers' comp would cover the medical bills, but only pay a percentage of my salary. And my company had this policy where, if you were out on medical leave for more than 90 days, they could terminate your position. Did the math real quick and realized I was looking at losing about $2,500 a month in income for potentially half a year. Plus, I'd need help with basic stuff, because I literally couldn't lift my arm above my waist or carry anything heavier than a coffee cup. Called my parents from the hospital the day after surgery. Explained the situation. Told them I was going to be in rough shape financially and might need to borrow some money to cover rent and bills while I recovered. Maybe crash with them for a month or 2 since I couldn't really take care of myself yet. Dad's response? Jake, we'd love to help, but money's really tight right now. Your mother's hours got cut and we've got our own bills to worry about. You're gonna have to figure something out. Mom got on the phone and basically echoed the same thing. Added some nonsense about how I was always so independent and capable. Surely I could work something out. Maybe ask my friends for help? Look into government assistance programs? I was in a hospital bed, high on pain medication, could barely move, and my parents were telling me to figure it out on my own. The betrayal hit different than the favoritism I'd grown up with. This wasn't about getting less attention or fewer privileges. This was about actually needing help and being told no. My buddy Carlos came through, though. He and his wife had just bought a house with an extra bedroom, and they offered to let me stay with them while I recovered. Wouldn't even let me pay rent, just said to help with groceries when I could. Family's supposed to help family, Carlos said when I tried to thank him for the 100th time. And sometimes your real family ain't the people you're related to. Moving in with them was humbling in ways I didn't expect. I'd always been the independent guy who handled his own problems. Now I needed help with everything. Carlos had to carry my bags up the stairs because I couldn't lift anything. Amy set up the bedroom with everything on my right side since I couldn't use my left arm. The first night there, I just sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Not from physical pain, though that was brutal. From the realization that strangers were treating me better than my own parents. Carlos knocked on the door, came in without saying anything, and just sat there with me until I pulled myself together. Those first few months were brutal. Physical therapy hurt worse than the original injury some days. I'd wake up in the middle of the night because I rolled onto my bad shoulder. Couldn't dress myself for weeks. Carlos's wife Amy had to help me with basic stuff like putting on shirts and cutting up food. The physical therapy sessions were their own special kind of hell. 3 times a week I'd go to this clinic where a therapist named Sandra would put me through exercises that felt like torture. Shoulder rotations, resistance bands, weight training with 2-pound dumbbells that felt like concrete blocks. Pain is your body healing, Sandra would say, while I gritted my teeth through another rep. You're rebuilding strength that the injury took away. Yeah, real inspirational stuff when you're sweating through your shirt, trying to lift your arm above your head. The mental aspect was worse than the physical sometimes. I'd been a supervisor, had people reporting to me, was on track for a management position. Now I was dependent on friends to help me shower, and couldn't even open a jar of peanut butter on my own. Carlos never made me feel like a burden, though. He'd joke about how I was finally learning what it was like to be humble. His wife would laugh and tell him to shut up, then ask if I needed help with anything. Their kids, 2 boys aged 6 and 8, thought I was like a fun uncle who lived with them. They'd draw me pictures and leave them on my nightstand. One night, about 6 weeks in, I was having a particularly bad evening. Pain was worse than usual, and I'd just gotten another email from the company saying they still weren't sure when I could come back. I was sitting in their living room just staring at nothing when Amy sat down next to me. You doing okay? Not really. Feel like everything's falling apart and I can't do anything to stop it. She nodded. When Carlos got laid off from his job 3 years ago, before we had the boys, we almost lost everything. Credit cards maxed out, behind on rent, eating ramen for weeks straight. It was the darkest period of our life. I hadn't known that. Carlos had never mentioned it. What got you through it? Each other, and accepting help when it was offered. Carlos had this thing where he felt like asking for help was admitting failure. Took him months to finally accept that sometimes you need people. That needing help doesn't make you weak. I hate needing help. I know, but the people who care about you don't see it as a burden. They see it as a chance to show up for someone they care about. Let us help you, Jake. That's what family does. That conversation stuck with me. Started trying to be better about accepting their help instead of fighting it all the time. The financial hit was worse than I expected. Even with workers' comp covering some of it, I burned through my savings trying to keep up with rent on my apartment, my car payment, insurance, student loans, all of it. By month 3, I was basically broke. Had to sell my car just to cover bills. Started missing loan payments, credit score tanked, and through all of this, my parents never called to check on me. Not once. I'd text updates sometimes and get back these short responses like, glad you're healing or hang in there. Nothing substantial. No offers to visit. No asking if I needed anything. Meanwhile, I'm seeing Nathan post on social media about family dinners at my parents' house, weekend trips to the lake, all the normal family stuff, just without me. Month 4. I finally got medical clearance to return to work. Except my position had been filled, and the company offered me a lower-level job at $38,000. Take it or leave it. I took it because I needed income, but it stung. 6 years of working my way up, gone because I got hurt doing my job. My caseworker said I could probably sue for wrongful termination or something, but lawyers cost money I didn't have. So I swallowed it and went back to basically where I started. Started rebuilding slowly. Moved into a cheaper apartment. Picked up a used car. Created a strict budget to start clawing my way out of the hole. Carlos and Amy helped me move. Helped me get set up. Still wouldn't let me pay them back for the months I stayed with them. This whole time, I'm getting random texts from my mom asking about Christmas plans or my birthday. Surface level stuff. Never acknowledging that she'd left me to drown when I actually needed help. And I played along because what else was I gonna do? They're still my parents. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom texted asking if I was coming to dinner. I said yeah because the alternative was eating alone, and I figured I could handle one awkward family meal. Carlos offered to let me spend Thanksgiving with his family instead. You don't owe them your presents, man. Especially not after how they treated you. But I wanted to see them. Needed to see them, actually. Part of me was still hoping for some kind of acknowledgement or apology. That they'd see how I'd struggled and maybe feel bad about leaving me hanging. Stupid hope, but hope nonetheless. Showed up at their house and immediately noticed something was different. New furniture in the living room. Big sectional couch that definitely cost a few grand. New TV mounted on the wall, had to be at least 65 inches. Kitchen had been renovated at some point. New granite countertops, fancy backsplash, stainless steel appliances. The place looked good. Really good. Like they'd spent serious money recently. Walking through that door and seeing all the upgrades was like getting punched in the gut. While I'd been selling my car to make rent, they'd been remodeling their kitchen. Nathan was there looking pleased with himself, wearing some designer hoodie I knew cost at least $200. He gave me this weird bro hug that I barely returned. Mom fussed over the turkey like she was on some cooking show. Dad sat in his new recliner watching football. Barely acknowledged me when I came in. Dinner was tense from the start. Nobody mentioned my injury or asked how I was doing. The conversation stayed surface level. Weather, local news, what movie Nathan saw last weekend. I sat there pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, watching my family act like the past year hadn't happened. Then about halfway through dinner, Nathan couldn't contain his excitement anymore. Started talking about this apartment he was looking at. Turns out my parents had been helping him search for a place to buy. An actual house. They were talking about down payments and mortgage rates and interest locks. And I'm sitting there doing mental math that wasn't adding up. The real estate market is crazy right now, Dad was saying. But we found this great opportunity in Riverside. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, nice little yard. Perfect starter home. Mom nodded enthusiastically. And the neighborhood is up and coming. Great investment. Nathan was practically bouncing in his seat. I've never lived anywhere that was actually mine, you know? It's gonna be so cool. I felt something cold settling in my stomach. Wait, I interrupted. You guys are helping Nathan buy a house? The table went quiet. Dad looked at me like I'd asked a stupid question. Well, yeah. He can't live with us forever. It's time he got his own place. How much are you helping him with? My parents exchanged this look. The kind of look that said they hadn't planned on having this conversation in front of me. Mom did that thing where she tries to make something sound smaller than it is. Spoke in that overly casual tone that meant she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. We're just giving him a little help with the down payment. Nothing major. How much? Nathan, bless his complete lack of self-awareness, jumped in excited. Couldn't read the room to save his life. They're giving me $50,000 for the down payment. Isn't that awesome? I found this great 3-bedroom place in Riverside that's only $285,000. With their help, I can actually afford it. The mortgage payment is going to be like $1,800 a month, but I can swing that with my job. The room went dead quiet. I must have had a look on my face because even Nathan shut up. Mom was suddenly very interested in her green beans. Dad cleared his throat and reached for his water glass. $50,000. These people who couldn't afford to help me with rent while I recovered from a serious injury had somehow scraped together 50 grand to buy my brother a house. That's great, I said, voice flat. Real generous of you guys. Dad picked up on my tone. Don't start, Jake. This is different. How exactly is it different? Nathan needs this. He's been struggling to find his direction, and having his own place will give him stability and motivation. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. I needed help 8 months ago when I literally couldn't work and you told me money was tight. But Nathan needs a house so suddenly you've got 50 grand lying around? Mom jumped in with her peacekeeping voice. Jake, we've been saving that money for years. It's not the same as having extra money for emergencies. Saving it for what? For him specifically? The silence was my answer. Right. So you've had this money the whole time. You just decided helping me wasn't a priority. Nathan tried to defend them. Dude, it's not like that. They were gonna help you, but what? I never asked. You never needed it. You always figure stuff out. There it was again. That same line I'd heard my whole life. I was too capable, too independent, too good at handling my own problems to deserve actual support. I needed it, I said quietly. I asked for help and you said no. I slept on a friend's couch for 3 months because I couldn't afford rent. I sold my car. I maxed out my credit cards and destroyed my credit score. I needed help and you left me to figure it out while saving money to buy him a house. Dad's face was getting red. We made a decision about how to use our money. You're an adult. You don't get to dictate what we do with our finances. You're absolutely right. It's your money. Spend it however you want. But don't expect me to pretend this is okay. And don't expect me to keep showing up to family dinners like nothing happened. I got up and left. Didn't even grab my coat. Just walked out and sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to calm down before driving home. That was 8 months ago. Haven't spoken to them since except for a few text exchanges that went nowhere. They tried the guilt trip route at first. Mom sent these long messages about how families should stick together and how hurt they were that I was being distant. Full paragraphs about how they'd always loved me and didn't understand why I was pulling away, playing the victim like she was the injured party here. Dad sent shorter messages, basically telling me to grow up and stop being dramatic. You're too old to throw tantrums over family decisions, one text read. We did what we thought was best for Nathan. You need to move on. Move on. Right. Like they'd just accidentally forgotten to call me back and not deliberately left me to struggle through a medical crisis. Nathan sent me one text that just said, "Sorry, bro," and nothing else. Didn't even have the guts to call. Probably typed it while sitting on the couch my parents bought him for his new house. I focused on rebuilding my life without them. Worked overtime whenever I could. My supervisor was cool about letting me take extra shifts since I'd proven myself reliable. Started picking up Saturday shifts at time and a half, sometimes pulling 55 to 60-hour weeks. The grind was brutal, but necessary. Every paycheck I'd split between paying down debt and building my emergency fund back up. Made a detailed spreadsheet tracking every dollar, every debt, every goal. Carlos called it my revenge budget. Getting my life together was the best middle finger I could give my parents. Got a second part-time gig doing inventory consulting for smaller companies on weekends. One of my former coworkers had started a consulting business and needed someone who knew inventory systems. 3 hours on Sunday mornings counting stock and organizing warehouses for local businesses. Extra $400 a month that went straight to debt. It was exhausting. Working Monday through Friday at my regular job, Saturday overtime shifts, Sunday morning consulting gigs. My social life was non-existent. Dated a woman for about 2 months before she got tired of me always being busy. Couldn't even blame her. Who wants to date someone who works 7 days a week? But the numbers were moving in the right direction. Credit card balances dropping. Emergency fund growing. Credit score ticking up point by point. Started hitting milestones that felt huge. Paying off one credit card completely. Getting my credit score over 650. Saving up $1,000 emergency fund. Carlos became like the brother I should have had. Real family. Chosen family. He helped me create a financial recovery plan. Introduced me to his financial advisor friend who gave me free advice. Kept me sane through the worst of it. His family included me in everything. Birthdays, holidays, random barbecues. Never made me feel like charity or a burden. This is what family does, Amy told me once when I tried to thank her for probably the 100th time. We show up for each other. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. That's what makes it real. Their kids started calling me Uncle Jake. Would make me birthday cards and Christmas cards with crayon drawings. The younger one, Danny, asked me once why I didn't spend holidays with my other family. Because they're not really my family, I told him. You guys are. What makes us your family if we're not related? Carlos overheard and jumped in. Family isn't about being related, buddy. It's about who shows up when you need them. The kid thought about that for a second, then shrugged and went back to his coloring. But the words stuck with me. My credit score started recovering faster than I expected. All those on-time payments adding up. Paid off my credit cards completely by month 6. The feeling of zeroing out that last balance was better than Christmas. Actually cried a little looking at the payment confirmation. Got promoted back to a supervisor position at work with a pay bump to $48,000. Not where I was before the injury, but climbing back. My boss pulled me aside after announcing the promotion and said he'd watched how I'd handled adversity, and it showed character. That I was the kind of person he wanted in leadership. That meant more to me than he probably knew. Being recognized for working hard and pushing through difficulty instead of just being given handouts because someone felt sorry for me. Found a better apartment in a decent neighborhood. 2 bedrooms because I wanted actual space. Had a balcony where I could sit in the evenings and just breathe. No roommates, no favors, just my own place that I paid for with my own money. Signed that lease feeling proud in a way I hadn't felt in years. Bought a reliable used car. Nothing fancy, just a Honda Civic with 80,000 miles that ran great. Paid cash for it using money I'd saved from all those extra shifts. The dealer looked surprised when I pulled out the envelope of bills. Felt good to make a major purchase without financing anything. Things were looking up. I was climbing out of the hole my injury and my family's abandonment had dug for me. Doing it completely on my own terms with help from people who actually gave a damn about me. Then 2 weeks ago, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally I don't answer those, but something made me pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe just bad timing. It was Nathan. He sounded stressed. Voice had that edge to it that meant he was trying to stay calm, but failing. Started with some awkward small talk asking how I was doing like we just talked yesterday instead of not speaking for months. Asked about my job, my apartment, if I was seeing anyone. All surface level stuff that we both knew wasn't why he called. Listen, he finally said after about 2 minutes of dancing around it. I know things have been weird between us and the parents. I should have reached out sooner. It was awkward, you know? After Thanksgiving and everything. Is there a point to this call, Nathan? Yeah, right. So I'm in a bit of a situation and I was hoping you could help me out. I almost hung up right there, but curiosity got the better of me. Had to hear what kind of situation required calling the brother he'd ghosted for months. What kind of situation? The house they helped me buy? I'm having trouble making the mortgage payments. I thought my job was solid, but they cut my hours back in January, and I'm barely covering bills. The utilities alone are killing me. 3 bedrooms means heating and cooling costs are crazy. Plus the HOA fees that I didn't really budget for properly. And the property taxes were higher than I expected. He was spiraling now, words coming faster like he'd been holding this in for a while. I'm like 3 months behind on the mortgage, and the bank is sending warning letters. Got one that says they're starting foreclosure proceedings if I don't catch up by next month. I've tried everything, man. Picked up extra shifts when they're available, cut back on eating out, even sold some stuff. But it's not enough. Sorry to hear that. What's this got to do with me? Long pause. Could hear him breathing on the other end. I was hoping you could loan me some money, just to get caught up. Maybe like 5 grand? I'll pay you back, I swear. Soon as I get my hours back to normal, I'll send you monthly payments. We can draw up a contract or whatever you want. The audacity. The sheer audacity of this kid. My brother who'd watched my parents hand him $50,000 while I struggled through an injury. Who'd sent 1 2-word text in 8 months. Who'd never once asked how I was doing or if I needed anything. This guy was calling me for a loan. Let me get this straight. Mom and Dad gave you $50,000 for a house you can't afford. You're 3 months behind on your mortgage. And you're calling me, the brother you haven't spoken to in almost a year, to ask for 5 grand? I'm desperate, man. I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything. Have you asked Mom and Dad for help? Another long pause. This one said everything. They can't help. They've got their own money problems right now. That got my attention. Sat up straighter in my chair. What kind of money problems? I don't know all the details. Dad doesn't talk about it much. But something about his job not working out and some investments that went bad. They lost a chunk of money somewhere. They're selling the house. Wait, hold up. My parents were selling their house? The house they'd lived in for 20 years? The house they'd just renovated with new furniture and appliances? They're selling the house? Their house? Yeah, they're downsizing to an apartment or something, moving into a 2-bedroom place across town. It's a whole thing. Mom's really upset about it, but Dad says they don't have a choice. Something about needing to access the equity to cover debts. The pieces were starting to fit together in my head. They'd spent their savings buying Nathan a house. Something went wrong with Dad's job. Now they were broke and selling their house to stay afloat. And Nathan was about to lose his house because they couldn't bail him out anymore. But anyway, about that loan, I cut him off. Nathan, I'm not giving you 5 grand. I'm not giving you $5. You're on your own. Jake, please. I'm gonna lose the house. Then you lose the house. Should have thought about that before buying something you couldn't afford. You're really gonna let me become homeless over this? Over some grudge about stuff that happened last year? The lack of self-awareness was stunning. This isn't about a grudge. This is about consequences. You made choices. Bad ones. That's not my problem to fix. What happened to family helping family? I laughed again. Same hollow laugh from that Thanksgiving dinner. You mean like how our parents helped me when I was injured and broke? Oh wait, they didn't. Or like how you and them stayed in touch and checked on me during the worst time of my life. Oh, wait, that didn't happen either. That kind of family help? I said I was sorry. You sent a text that said sorry, bro. That's not an apology. That's a cop-out. And now you want money? Nah. Figure it out yourself. You're capable and independent, right? I hung up before he could respond. 2 days later, my phone rang again. Mom this time. Jake, we need to talk. About what? About your brother. He told us you refused to help him with his mortgage situation. That's right. I did refuse. How can you be so cold? He's your brother. He's going to lose everything. Everything you gave him, you mean. The house he couldn't afford that you enabled him to buy. That everything? She made this frustrated sound. This isn't about the past. This is about him needing help right now. Funny how it's only about the present when you need something from me. When I needed help, it was also about the present and you couldn't be bothered. That's not fair, Jake. Our financial situation was different then. Was it though? Because you had $50,000 saved up. You just chose not to use any of it to help me. Dad grabbed the phone. I could hear the exchange in the background. His voice came through tight and controlled. Jake, your mother and I made decisions we thought were best at the time. We're not going to apologize for helping your brother get started in life. I'm not asking for an apology. You called me, remember? We're calling because we need you to be reasonable. Nathan needs $5,000, or he's going to lose his house. You're in a position to help him, and you're choosing not to out of spite. I'm choosing not to because it's not my responsibility. He's an adult. You guys are adults. I'm not a bank, and even if I was, I wouldn't loan money to people who've proven they can't manage it. This is what's wrong with your generation. No sense of family obligation. That one made me laugh. My generation? This from the man who watched me struggle and did nothing? Dad, I've got family obligations. To myself. To the people who actually showed up for me when I needed them. That doesn't include you guys anymore. Mom took the phone back. Her voice was different now. Smaller. Jake, we're in trouble. Real trouble. Your father lost his job 6 months ago. We've been burning through our savings. That's why we're selling the house. We were hoping to help Nathan keep his place and move in with him for a while until we get back on our feet. The whole picture clicked into place. They'd spent their savings helping Nathan buy a house he couldn't afford. Dad lost his job. Now they were broke and planning to move in with Nathan. Except Nathan was about to lose the house. So their backup plan was falling apart and they needed me to bail them out. That sounds really difficult, I said. I'm sorry you're going through that. So you'll help? Absolutely not. Silence on the other end. You're going to let your parents end up homeless? The same way you let me struggle through an injury that cost me my job and my savings? Yeah, I am. Figure it out. You're resourceful people. You'll find a way. Jake, please. I'm done with this conversation. Don't call me again asking for money. Don't call me at all unless you're ready to actually acknowledge what you did and why it was wrong. Until then, we've got nothing to talk about. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Blocked Nathan too. Then I sat down and had a drink because my hands were shaking. Carlos called that night like he somehow knew I needed to talk. Told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said, "Good for you, man. They made their choices. They don't get to guilt you into fixing their mess after they left you hanging." Part of me feels terrible, though. They're my parents. Being someone's parent doesn't give you a free pass to treat them like garbage and then demand help when you need it. You offered them a chance to be family when you needed them. They said no. Now they get to live with that decision. He was right. I knew he was right. But it still felt weird, like I was doing something wrong by protecting myself. The next few days, I got texts from relatives I barely knew. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly very concerned about family unity and forgiveness. Clearly, my parents had been working the phone tree trying to drum up pressure, playing the victim card with anyone who'd listen. My mom's cousin Linda texted, "I heard about the situation with your parents. They're really struggling and need family support right now. Blood is thicker than water, Jake." I replied, "The full quote is, 'The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb,' meaning chosen relationships are stronger than family bonds." Funny how people always forget that part. My Uncle Gary called directly. Didn't even bother with hello. "Jake, your mother called me in tears. She says you're refusing to help them when they're about to lose everything. That's not how we raised you kids to behave." With all due respect, Uncle Gary, you didn't raise me at all. You see me maybe twice a year at family events. You have no idea how they raised me or what our relationship is actually like. But they're your parents. They gave you life. They gave me life, then told me to handle it on my own when I needed help. I'm just following their example. He made some frustrated noise and launched into a speech about family obligation and respect. told me I was being immature and selfish, that I'd regret this decision when they were gone. All the classic guilt trip lines people use when they don't actually understand the situation, but feel entitled to judge anyway. I let him finish his speech, then said, "Are you done? Because I've got to get ready for work. You know, that thing I do to support myself since my parents taught me to be so independent." Didn't hear back from him after that, or from Linda, or from most of the other flying monkeys my parents sent my way. They'd deliver their guilt trip message, I'd push back, and they'd disappear back to their own lives. Easy to judge from the outside when you're not the one who lived through it. One uncle actually had the nerve to text me, "Your parents gave you life. The least you can do is help them in their time of need." I replied, "They gave me life, then told me to handle it on my own. I'm just following their parenting philosophy." Didn't hear back from him after that. 3 weeks went by. Radio silence from my parents and Nathan. Then I got an email from my mom's account with the subject line, "Please read this." The email was long, like really long. Started with the usual guilt trip stuff about family and love and obligation. Then it shifted to blaming me for being stubborn and holding grudges. Said some pretty nasty things about how I'd always been the difficult child who needed to be right about everything. But at the end, there was this part that actually seemed honest for once. "Your father and I are scared. We don't know what's going to happen to us. We made mistakes with how we treated you, and we're sorry if you felt unsupported during your injury. But we need help now, and you're the only one who can provide it. Please don't abandon us the way you think we abandoned you." The apology was buried under so much other nonsense that it barely counted, and it was still focused on them and their needs. But it was something. I sat on that email for 2 days before responding, wrote and deleted probably 10 different replies before settling on what I actually sent. "Mom and Dad, I understand you're scared and struggling, and I know what that feels like because I lived through it not that long ago. The difference is I had to figure it out completely on my own while you had options and chose not to use them to help me. You're right that I felt unsupported during my injury. I didn't just feel that way. I was unsupported. I asked for help and you said no. You had money saved but decided it was more important to buy Nathan a house than to help your other son keep his apartment during a medical crisis. Those were your choices and you're entitled to make them. But I'm also entitled to make mine. And I choose not to involve myself in your financial situation. Not out of spite or revenge, but because I've learned that I can't count on you and you've learned you can't count on me. That's the relationship we built together. I don't wish you harm. I hope you find a way through this. But I'm not going to be the solution to problems you created. You taught me to be independent and self-sufficient. Congratulations, the lesson stuck. Take care of yourselves. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're resourceful people." Jake. Sent it and then blocked their email too. I was done. Completely done. That was 3 months ago. Through the family grapevine, I heard they ended up moving into a small apartment across town. Nathan lost his house and moved back in with them. All 3 of them in a 2-bedroom apartment from what I understand. My aunt, who's actually decent, called me once to check in. She didn't pressure me to reconcile or help them out. Just wanted to make sure I was doing okay. "Your parents are telling everyone you're a terrible son who abandoned them," she said. "I wanted you to know that some of us know better. We've watched how they treated you over the years. Thanks. That actually means a lot. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you have to let people face the consequences of their choices even when it's hard to watch." I appreciated that more than I could express. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.